When I sold the apartment I shared with him for almost 40 years, I did it without noise. I didn't consult anyone. I went to the notary, signed the papers, and closed a stage. It hurt, of course, but I also felt relief. That house was empty of his voice, and footsteps oppressed my chest. I thought the money would help me start something small, something just mine, an apartment on the beach, perhaps, or a studio in Zaragoza near the Central Market, a corner with silence and light. But then Ulysses called me. He was crying. He didn't know what to do. He said they had fired him, that Neria worked part-time, that the twins needed to continue in daycare, and they couldn't manage. They were at their limit. He said they didn't want to take anything from me, but it was an emergency. He used that word, emergency. And I, who always had the reflex of a nurse, replied without thinking. I made the transfer that same afternoon. I didn't ask for details or conditions. I just said yes. 2 weeks later, I settled in with them. There was no other plan to help a little while they recovered. I would be there for a few months, helping with food, cleaning, and the children. As soon as they could breathe, I would go. Ulysses insisted it was temporary. Neria faked a smile. The twins hugged me as if nothing was wrong. I gave myself without reservation. It was comforting to be useful again. One day, while helping Rocio with a task, she asked me to look for an image on her father's laptop. I opened the browser and accidentally stumbled over a folder called Laureano Documentation. Something made me stop. I clicked. There was a PDF with the commercial registry seal, initial investment, and a list of partners, Ulysses, with the money. The money I had given had not been for a firing. They were never fired. I closed the computer carefully. I swallowed the tremor that rose in my throat. I said nothing, neither that night nor the next. I just breathed, smiled at my grandchildren, and placed the dishes in silence. I made a promise to myself. When the time came, I wouldn't scream. I would remember everything without forgetting a single penny or word. And then, the photos began to disappear. Months turned into years, and without realizing it, more than 1,000 days had passed in that house that wasn't mine. I became where I was before dawn and after everyone fell asleep. I prepared breakfasts, folded clothes, and checked homework. I knew which doctor attended each child better, how to calm their coughing fits, and what food didn't make them cry. I did everything in silence, like someone who breathes without noticing. Every month, part of my pension went to the supermarket. They never asked me, but I didn't avoid it either. When the old washing machine stopped working, I bought a new one in an almost automatic impulse. Nobody thanked me. They just settled in and moved on. At first, Ulysses thanked me almost out of habit. Then he did it with a slight gesture. After that, he didn't say anything. Neria stopped speaking to me except to ask for something. Mom, can you pick up the kids? Mom, is there anything for dinner? I got used to hearing my name as if it were a function and not a person. The dining room table now had 5 chairs. My place was moved to a corner as if I were leftover. And at some point, the twins started calling Rafaela Grandma, a woman who came 3 times a year, who never changed a diaper or prepared a plate. One night, I went down to get a blanket in the living room. It was cold, and I didn't want to disturb anyone. When I turned on the lamp, I noticed it right away. The photos had changed. The ones from the trip to Teruel, the ones I took with them in the park, the one from Rocio's birthday, they had all disappeared. In their place were new frames with impersonal landscapes and portraits of relatives where I no longer appeared. I stood for a few seconds, looking at the gap on the shelf where the picture of Eli with the children used to be. It was gone. No one told me. Nobody commented. I just realized. On the way back, I turned off the light and went up slowly to my room. It was then that Ulysses let it slip without raising his head. I was folding t-shirts in the laundry, like almost every night, when Ulysses entered without warning. He held his cell phone pressed against his chest, as if protecting it from something. He didn't look at me or even fake a smile. Mom, he said in a dry, neutral tone, Neria's parents are moving into a house in 2 weeks. I was left with a children's t-shirt in my hands, unsure if I had heard correctly. He continued as if reporting the weather. You'll have to look somewhere else. Neria appeared behind him, crossed her arms, and added without a hint of warmth in her voice, "You'll manage. You always manage." I laughed, a short, nervous laugh without strength. I thought they were joking, that maybe it was some absurd occurrence taken out of context, but neither of them smiled. It wasn't a joke, they were serious. I placed the folded t-shirt on the basket with the same slowness with which one lowers a flag. I stood up without saying a word. I crossed the hall with borrowed calm and stopped for a second in front of the bookshelf. Where there used to be a family photo, the only one in which I appeared with the children, now there was a scented candle. No trace of the frame or me. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, wrapped in a blanket, watching the dim lights in the neighborhood. I scanned it all in silence. The shopping, the sleepless nights, visits to the doctor, the stories told from memory, the times I swallowed my pride, and the times I pretended not to notice the slights. The next morning, Ulysses re-entered my room, this time with a softer tone, as if asking me a favor that didn't really matter to him. "If you could go ahead with the cleaning of things you don't use, just dispensable," he said. He asked me to use the office closet so as not to get in the way. I nodded without speaking. Then I sat on the bed and looked at the reading lamp I bought at a flea market. I turned on the light and saw for the first time with clarity that I was no longer welcome, not even tolerated, only endured. And I hadn't heard what they would say when they thought I wasn't listening. The small gestures began to change in tone. It was no longer just forgetfulness, it was erasure. The milk I always drank, the one I bought by the box so as not to bother, disappeared from the fridge. In its place was a vegetable version with a label written in French. Healthier, they said. More invisible, I thought. My chair was still not at the table. I didn't complain. I stood up a couple of times, pretending I had things to do. Then I started having dinner in the laundry room with the plate on the washing machine. I didn't say anything. I swallowed the cold rice and also the tears. One morning, Neria handed me a list of foods without garlic or curry. "Bet has an intolerance," she said. Bet, the mother who came to visit once a month and who now would have a room at home. I just nodded. In the kitchen, I opened the cupboard where I kept my spices and found it empty. Everything I had was gone. I knew what they were doing. There was no need to say it. They wanted me out, not because of a fight or a big argument, but through wear and tear, by silently eliminating me. One night, I was carrying a basket of clothes to the laundry. When I heard voices in the living room, I stopped. Ulysses spoke in a practical tone, as if organizing furniture. "The children can share a room. My mother, let her find a way to make a living." Neria didn't reply, just a slight that weighed more than any whole sentence. I continued to the laundry room but didn't turn on the light. I sat on the floor with my back against the washing machine. I heard my own breathing. It didn't even hurt anymore. It was just a confirmation of something my body had sensed for a long time. I returned to my room and lit the lamp I brought from Zaragoza, the same one I used to read with when Ulysses was a child. On the quilt, I left the blanket with flowers that accompanied me in the winters. I observed the worn spines of my books, and for the first time, I asked myself the question I had avoided for so long: is this really still my home? That night, I didn't cry. I opened a notebook and wrote a list. I opened the laptop like someone opening a wound. I hadn't used it since before moving in with Ulysses. The screen took a while to react, as if it knew what it was going to show me wouldn't be easy to see. I logged into my online banking with clumsy, almost trembling fingers and faced the truth. During the last 2 years, I had made transfers, payments, and deposits without thinking twice, to be there. I broke down the movements month by month, expense by expense. The total sum left me frozen, over $6,000. Supermarket payments when Neria forgot her card, medicines for the children, small repairs, detergent, gasoline. Nobody asked me, of course, but nobody thanked me either. I looked in my email for the receipts. There they were, the washing machine bill, the dryer, even the pressure cooker I used so much on Sundays, the air filters, the lamps in the hallway, all in my name, all with my card. I opened a spreadsheet, something I hadn't done since my days as an accountant in Zaragoza. I felt useful again, accurate. I printed receipts, put clips, marked dates, and separated folders. Each file was silent proof that I had not been out of place. I had held that house up longer than anyone there wanted to admit. While sorting papers in the desk drawer, I found a badly closed envelope. I opened it. The document inside was a draft, a transfer of property ownership, a preliminary draft. My name appeared as the seating party, Ulysses as the sole holder. It didn't have a date, but it had intention. He was already preparing to keep it all. I sat there with the document in my hands, feeling a different kind of cold. They didn't just want me out, they wanted me erased, as if I had never existed, as if that house had no traces of me in every corner. I closed the folder carefully. My breathing was slow but firm. There was no longer any room for doubt. It was time to silently decide how I wanted this story to end. So, I walked over to the closet and took out my biggest suitcase. I called Kata one afternoon, as if I weren't about to dismantle my own life. She answered with her usual dry and firm voice, without unnecessary questions. I explained the plan, no drama, just facts. Kata remained silent for a few seconds, then replied, "Tell me when." In the days that followed, we didn't speak much. It wasn't necessary. We reserved a white van, one of those that pass unnoticed in any neighborhood. I was printing all receipts, transfers, and invoices. I put together folders with labels. I left copies in a sealed envelope that I kept at Kata's house, just in case. I put the rest in discreet boxes, a scarf here, a book there, nothing to raise suspicions. I waited until Friday. Ulysses would go early to a work retreat. Neria, like every weekend, would take the children to her parents' house. I knew I would have exactly 4 hours, no more, no less. That morning, I woke up before dawn. I made coffee as usual and sat in the kitchen with my hot cup between my hands. The sun had not yet risen. The silence was almost liquid. Ulysses left without saying goodbye, as usual. Neria, half an hour later, yelled at the children to put on their shoes. Nobody noticed me. I was already invisible. When the door closed behind them, I dialed Kata's number. I only said 2 words, "I'm ready." 20 minutes later, the van was parked in front of the building. Kata came down with gardening gloves and sunglasses. We looked like 2 ladies moving from one town to another without noise. We started with my room, then the storage room. My dishes, my plants, my blankets, everything that had a name, memory, or invoice, everything that proved I had been there. I didn't cry, I didn't tremble. I just packed. Each box was a way of saying, this far, to draw a limit they had crossed long ago. When we closed the last box and the van door, I sat in the passenger seat, looked at the house one more time, and said, "Kata, drive." We started at the kitchen. Every pan, every knife, every cup I had bought with my pension, we carefully packed in lined boxes, wooden spoons, the juicer, the cloths I once embroidered in silence while they watched TV. Everything I ever touched with affection went with me. Then the living room. The Persian carpet I bought at an antique fair, the floor lamp that illuminated me when I read at night, the shelf I put together with Ulysses when he still called me Mom sweetly. Nothing was left to chance. Kata worked without saying a word, her movements fast but careful. The washing machine and dryer we lowered with the help of a wheeled platform she had brought. Also, the air purifier, the portable heater I put in the children's room when the dining room chairs were cold, the electric pot, even the table where they used to sit without looking at me, the lamps, the curtains I sewed by hand. The emptiness grew with each object removed, but it was not a sad emptiness, it was a cleansing, a surgical act. I took what was mine, not one thing more. I didn't break or damage anything, I left no resentment on the walls. When we finished, I swept one last time, not for them, for me. I left everything clean. On the kitchen counter, I placed a single printed sheet, folded in 2, I took what I paid for. What you despised, you can keep. Without love, without a signature, just right. I closed the door without looking back. We unloaded the last boxes. When I got into the van, Kata extended a bottle of water without saying anything. I felt grateful. In the rearview mirror, the house was just a soulless structure, as if I had never lived there. And yet, inside me, something new was breathing because, as I walked away, I knew I still had one place left to go. And it wasn't precisely a place, it was a decision. The keys jingled in my hand as I approached the door of the studio. It was small, old, but it was mine. For the first time in a long time, every step I took belonged to me. I signed the contract with firm hands, and upon leaving, I walked to the notary's office without looking back. I didn't have to give explanations to anyone. I activated the account I had opened in secret shortly after Eli passed away. Every month, a little bit of the pension went there, sometimes €5, sometimes 20. A tiny, invisible fund, but it had sustained me with the idea that maybe one day I would need it. That day arrived. The lock turned without resistance. The door didn't squeak. The tap water came out warm, and the kitchen window let in a clean breeze that smelled of hung clothes. I sat on the inflatable mattress Kata gave me for the first night and breathed, not because I was tired, but because I could finally do it without fear of upsetting anyone. That night, as I opened boxes, I heard voices in the hallway laughter. I peeked in. Leocadia, a robust woman with thick glasses and sparkling eyes, greeted me without hesitation. "Are you up for a little game?" She didn't ask where I came from or why. She just opened the door and made a gesture. We played cards with two other neighbors. Between plays and jokes, they offered me wine, peanuts, even an old coat to hang in the hall. Nobody told me how to sit. Nobody commented if I put the wrong token in dominoes. Nobody asked me for anything. I laughed, not like when you want to fit in, but with that laughter that rises alone, without permission. Leocadia winked at me. "It's not like that here. Nothing folds except the sheets, if you want." Upon returning to the studio, I took off my shoes, poured myself some tea, and sat on the floor. I heard the silence. It wasn't hollow, it wasn't punishment. It was a whole space that belonged to me. And then I knew that, despite everything, I still had one more card to play. At 9:13 the next morning, the phone vibrated for the first time. Ulysses. I let it ring. At 9:31, he insisted. This time, he left a message. I listened to it while making coffee. "Did you take the pot? The kitchen doesn't work. Neria doesn't even know how to boil water." I smiled without resentment. It was curious how the absences were evident in the simplest things.
Et 10:05, another message arrive, Mortense, Holger. Where are the curtains? The children could they sleep with so much light? Why did you take everything? By the fifth call, I heard sobs in the background in the children. My soul trembled, but I didn't answer. On the egg, Ulysses shouted a man's clumps, tired, and overwhelmed words, unable to find a brown or a solution. At the ten, his voice changed. "Mom, come back. We didn't know how much you are doing. We didn't know." And they knew that what they didn't know was the root of everything, in their blindness, their comfort, their ingratitude. They had gotten used to me like a light, always on, but no one wondered who lit it. The 11th call was from Nereia. He ignored it on the 12th, silence. No one called back for hours. He started cleaning a shelf Leocadia had given me. At that moment, the doorbell rang. It was the postman with a registered letter from a law firm. He opened it with call. The letter was a notification from Laureano and Rafaela. They wanted to see me. They were surprised. "We didn't know you lived with them, Eusebia. They told us you no longer work for the family, that you had left of your own free will." I felt something inside me shrink. How could they deny me like that? I had raised their grandchildren, ironed the shirts every Sunday, erased as if I had never existed. The ink of the past began to fade, but not by my hand. I got up and put the letter in a blue folder because, even if content was silent, truth has another way to make itself hard. And there was still one conversation to have. I entered the lavier's office with trembling hands but a serene heart. In a folder, I carried everything in supermarket receipts with my signature, service contracts in my name, children's doctor records where I appeared as responsible. I was looking for money, I just wanted to understand if what I had experienced had some value before the law, if someone beyond me recognized that I was there. De Lavier, a young woman with a firm voice, looked through the papers in silence. when she finished, she looked at me without condescension. You could see there sufficient drone. But honestly, Mr. Eusebia, you were already won. I didn't know whether to smile or cry. Whining. That was whining. That night, I sat at the table, turned on the small lamp, and wrote with my usual handwriting, the one I learned in calligraphy notebooks when life was still a promise. Ulysses, I invested time, care, and love. I was the one who watched over your children when you were at meetings, the one who cooked, cleaned, accompanied. The one who fell silent so as not to hinder. When convenient, I was useful, when not, I was in the way. I don't blame you, I'm just explaining what you lost. It is not my pods or my towels, it is something that is measured in invoices. You lost your mother. I didn't sign it, I didn't need to. I folded it carefully and put it in envelope with no return address and walked to the post office. I dropped it in the mailbox with a long sig, as if realizing something trapped in my chest for years. That same afternoon, when I returned to the studio, Leocadia was waiting at the door. She handed me a small embroidered kitchen pot holder with my initial. So you don't get burned ever again, she said. Days later, I found one stamped envelope in my mailbox. Inside was a drawing of clowns strokes and bright colors, in a house with flowers, a smiling figure at the window, and below, in children's letters, Grandma's house. I pasted it on the fridge. I looked at it for a long time and embraced not the paper, but what it meant. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept with the door open.